The elevator had no buttons, only a glass wall facing a courtyard no one walked through anymore. If anyone asked, she would say the building had always had strange elevators. She never remembered pressing anything. They simply arrived, opened, and accepted her. The kind of place where you didn't question what floor you were on, just the silence between them. Today, the silence was louder than usual. She stood inside the car, the dim interior flickering as if it were trying to settle on a memory. Her hand reached forward instinctively, brushing against the glass. Cool. Clean. But the courtyard outside looked wrong. Plants out of season, statues that seemed turned slightly from where they'd been yesterday. No wind. Just stillness thick like syrup. Then the descent began. The elevator moved smooth, soundless, but not down. Or up. It went inward. Somewhere between space and posture. The sensation crept through her ribs like a breath reversed. The walls shifted color, from concrete gray to a shade of violet, usually reserved for bruises. A voice spoke, not through speakers but inside her own tension. Do you want to talk now? She did not respond. Talking had rules. Timing. Escape routes. Then we will speak through silence. And so it began. She kept her eyes open as the walls of the elevator melted into corridors she had never walked, but recognized. Hallways made of memory. Carpets that felt like unfinished apologies. Fluorescent lights that flickered in the rhythm of things unsaid. Doors opened without hinges. She passed through them. Faces looked at her from picture frames, smiling too wide to be human. She remembered none of them, but they remembered her. Beneath each photo, a caption written in slashed ink. You almost told me. There were chairs that rocked themselves. Tables set for arguments that hadn't yet happened. A kitchen without knives. A living room full of televisions that only showed paused moments from conversations she didn't attend. This was not a dream. Dreams forgot you. This remembered her too well. She opened a drawer and found folded paper cranes made from apology letters. Each crease whispered something different. I didn't mean to. I thought it was better if you didn't know. Silence was safer than explanation. The walls breathed. The rooms moved. At the end of one hallway was a door covered in red thread. She touched it and felt every conversation she never finished. Every sentence aborted before vulnerability. Every "I'm fine" she used as a shield. When the door opened, she didn't walk through. She fell. Into a room that wasn't lit. It was remembered. Lit by moments that had happened too long ago to be relevant. The furniture was arranged like memory she tried to forget but never really did. A single journal sat on the table. It was unopened. No lock. Just paper and patience. She sat beside it. As her fingers reached the cover, she realized the silence had not been waiting to be broken. It had been trying to show her something. Something already written. Something waiting to be read. She did not open the journal, not yet. There was something ceremonial about it. Like slicing open the belly of memory and letting it spill. She waited in the room, listening to the pages not turn. They rustled anyway, whispering through pressure, not wind. Around her, the remembered room adjusted its posture. Furniture rearranged itself based on thoughts she hadn't yet voiced. A couch shrank to fit her denial. A mirror tilted toward something she wasn't ready to see. The television flickered again. Not static. Not footage. A paused moment from 12 years ago. Her leaving a room mid-sentence. His mouth half open. Her bag swinging. The moment an answer never arrived. The journal vibrated. She touched the cover. It pulsed. When she opened it, the pages were already full. Not with writing but impressions. Sections where ink had bled through from elsewhere. Words erased but dented into the paper. She began to read sideways. You asked without asking. We replied in ruptures. Everything loud was a disguise for silence. The lights dimmed. A figure sat across from her now. Not a person. A suggestion of one. Outline first. Then shape. But no face. Just posture. It leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands steepled. It mimicked the way she used to wait for confrontation. You left a lot unsaid, the figure offered. She nodded. The journal flipped its own page. Ink pooled in the shape of her last conversation with her mother. Not words, just gestures. Tilt of head. Clenched fists. A door not closed fully. Silence wasn't what she chose. It was what was offered. Behind the figure, the walls began to bend. Gravity wasn't failing, just becoming uncertain. She stood. The figure remained seated. "You think silence protects," it said. "I know it does," she replied. "It also imprisons." The corridor reappeared. This time longer. Angled. As if spatial logic had taken a detour. She walked. Each step echoed like a withheld confession. New rooms bloomed on either side. One filled with birthday cards she never sent. Another stacked with scripts of arguments rehearsed but never spoken. A chamber of unopened voicemails, their timestamps years apart. She passed through them all. Then, a room with no doors. Only curtains. Behind each, a person she'd chosen not to speak to again. They didn't look sad. Just paused. Frozen at the point before she walked away. The figure followed her now. "Do you wish you had spoken?" "I wish they had understood," she answered. It nodded. Somewhere behind them, the journal closed itself. In the silence that followed, she heard every version of herself she had suppressed. Not screaming. Just waiting. The walls of the corridor stretched backward as she walked, lengthening like a lie too long maintained. What she thought was an exit turned into a loop. What she thought was a return was merely another chance not taken. The figure followed without footsteps. It was not haunting. It was listening. You avoided volume but left echoes. She passed a room filled with tape recorders. Thousands. All playing at once, but there was no sound. Each one held a conversation that never finished. She pressed play on one. Silence. But on the screen above the recorder appeared a single word. "Why?" She sat in a chair and let the word wash over her. Another recorder flickered to life. This time a phrase appeared. "It wasn't your fault." She flinched. These weren't things she said. They were things she should have heard. The journal reappeared. This time on a podium. Open. Its pages shifted in a wind that didn't touch anything else. The paper was bleeding a liquid that wasn't ink. It soaked the podium and dripped onto the floor, forming words. "We remembered everything you swallowed." The figure pointed to the ceiling. Above her was a mural she hadn't seen before. It showed a crowded party with hundreds of faces, none of them interacting. Everyone smiling. Everyone alone. A red thread ran through their mouths. She looked down. One end of the thread was in her palm. She didn't know how long it had been there. Her hand closed around it. The walls pulsed. She pulled the thread. At first it resisted, like pulling meaning from trauma. Then it gave way. It unraveled through her skin, through her thoughts, through her timeline. Every unspoken word surfaced. The time she laughed instead of cried. The gesture she misread. The call she didn't return. The letter she never sent. And as the thread slipped out of her, the room changed. The walls turned translucent. Inside them, echoes of her old selves. Watching. Not judging. Just witnessing. The figure stepped beside her now, not behind. "They didn't need your silence. You did." She nodded. The journal snapped shut. A door opened in the wall. Not one she recognized. It didn't lead backward. It didn't lead outside. It led to a room shaped like a sentence unfinished. The room shaped like a sentence unfinished didn't have walls in the traditional sense. It was lined with layers of soundproof fabric, stitched together from moments she hadn't processed. Each panel was a texture: panic, regret, restraint. When she stepped inside, her voice evaporated. Not stolen. Just uninvited. The figure remained at the threshold. Watching. Inside, the temperature was neutral to the point of artificiality. She couldn't tell if she was cold or warm. Her skin didn't commit. It was memory resistant. In the center stood a table. A new journal. Not the one she had seen earlier. This one had a cover made of layered conversation fragments, printed text, faded emails, transcribed phone calls. Every word had been meant sincerely, but said insufficiently. She sat. Around her, the walls adjusted. Words emerged from them, not spoken but formed from shifting patterns in the fabric. It was language without sound. Communication as architecture. "You were fluent in avoidance," the room shaped. She nodded. Then assent. Familiar. The room began to smell like the moment she lost trust. Not betrayal. The slow erosion of safety. She didn't need the memory. The smell was enough. The table vibrated. Pages turned themselves. Each revealed a sketch, not drawn but etched by emotional residue. A closed mouth stitched shut with headphone cords. A hallway that narrowed until it became a throat. A face looking away while listening too closely. She looked up. The fabric on the farthest wall was pulsing. A door formed. When she walked through, she entered a new space. A classroom where every seat was occupied by someone she had silenced. Not through words. Through absence. Through disengagement. Through letting the end arrive instead of initiating it. Each person held a version of her. "You taught us what not to say," one version whispered. She didn't reply. Not because she disagreed, but because part of her was still seated. The figure joined her in the classroom. It placed a chalkboard at the front. Written on it, "Communication doesn't require sound. Silence is its own vocabulary." Then everything around her flickered. Room gone. Classroom collapsed. Only the journal remained, now splitting into pages that each drifted through the air like paper snow. She caught one. On it, a single phrase. "We only heard what you didn't say." She stood still. Time didn't stop, it hesitated. The journal fluttered somewhere behind her, caught in a breeze that only affected paper, not thought. Pages landed with surgical placement, forming a map not of locations but regrets. Every hallway became a sentence abandoned. She entered a new chamber. The air smelled like finality. It was circular. No doors. No windows. Only shelves. Each shelf held replicas of conversations, hollow in volume but complete in body language. Nods, side glances, flinches, folded arms, steps backward. At the center, a microphone. Disconnected. No cord. No speaker. Just the symbol. She approached. "They waited for you to speak." The figure was beside the mic now, becoming more defined. Its body now held posture from moments she had witnessed but not engaged in. "You trained yourself to endure silence, not understand it." The shelves trembled. A record spun from the ceiling, playing a lullaby she couldn't remember learning. Images formed on the walls. Her at age 10, overhearing an argument and pretending not to. Her at 23 being asked something painful and replying with a joke. Her at 31 watching someone cry and saying, "I'll give you space," when they needed presence. She sank to the floor. Tears didn't arrive. They waited. Silence wasn't sadness. It was sediment. The figure knelt. It placed something in front of her. A set of blueprints. Architectural designs of rooms she'd never built but always inhabited emotionally. One room was labeled, "Crisis Management." Another, "Polite Escape Hatch." A smaller one, "Misread Intimacy." She traced the lines. Each hallway in the design curled inward. A labyrinth designed to prevent confrontation, not solve it. She knew the blueprint. She'd lived it. "Do you want to redraw?" the figure asked. She didn't answer with words. She picked up the pen. The pen felt heavier than it should. Not in weight. In consequence. She hovered it over the blueprint, unsure of what lines needed erasing and which deserved to be preserved. She drew. Not walls. Not exits. She drew windows. Portals that let in meaning without demanding explanation. The room changed again. Fabricated walls retracted. Conversations she had buried reappeared. Not as voices, but as gentle vibrations in the floor. The architecture welcomed new structure. The figure watched silent. But its silence no longer felt oppressive. It felt collaborative. She stood and the room responded. Shelves rearranged themselves to prioritize understanding over defense. A door slid open, not pushed, not pulled. She entered. This time the space was not symbolic. It was emotional. It resembled her teenage bedroom, but not precisely. Furniture was fused with metaphors. A dresser held drawers labeled boundaries. A lamp emitted the glow of vulnerability. Her old bed had sheets woven from sentences once spoken too softly. She sat. The journal awaited. It opened again, now as a blank canvas. No pages. Just a surface. Words appeared only when felt. She placed her hands on it. It absorbed her temperature, her rhythm, her hesitation. Then, the page filled itself. They didn't leave because you were silent. They left because silence replaced connection. A gust of internal wind rushed through the room. Photos scattered. None she remembered taking. Each one showed her beside someone with unread eyes. Smiles that didn't reach. Gestures that begged interpretation. Postures leaning toward meaning but recoiling from risk. The figure lit a candle. Not literal. But the room felt warmer. She smiled. It didn't erase the silence. It validated it. The next space was impossible. It refused definition. Was it a room? A memory? A metaphor? The floor was made of missed calls. Not digital, conceptual. Every step she took triggered a notification she couldn't open. She didn't ask where she was. She asked who she was when she last felt heard. Nothing answered. Above her hung screens. Each showed her speaking but muted. Gesturing. Reaching. Smiling. But no sound. A voice, perhaps the figure's, perhaps her own, explained. You were visible. Not audible. She blinked. That distinction was heavier than expected. Then, a wall collapsed. Behind it, an echo chamber. But unlike most, this one didn't reflect sound. It reflected assumption. She spoke. The chamber replied not with her words, but how they were interpreted. Her "I'm fine" came back as "don't ask." Her "not now" echoed as "never." Her silence came back as rejection. She fell to her knees. Then everything flickered. The space fractured. The air shimmered. She was now surrounded by letters, unwritten, unsent. She picked one up. It was addressed to someone who had tried. Inside, the letter said, I didn't know how to be open without unraveling. Another addressed a former lover. You mistook silence for disinterest. It was fear. She read letter after letter. Each burned gently in her hands after being read. Then the journal appeared again. This time not open, but shaking. She opened it. Inside, a dialogue. Not between her and the figure. Between her and the silence itself. Why did you protect me? She wrote. Because you thought understanding required perfection. She responded. And you made me unreadable. Silence replied. No. You chose ambiguity. The page split. Revealed beneath it. A mirror. She saw herself. But the reflection didn't match her pose. It matched her intentions. The version of her who wanted to connect but defaulted to withdrawal. There is no unspoken truth that explains everything, said the figure at last. Only fragments. Only attempts. She nodded. And the space disassembled, revealing the next threshold. The threshold was not walked through. It was absorbed. She felt the room form around her like a memory choosing when to arrive. There were no objects. No architecture. Just sensation. A sound barely there. The distant hum of disappointment not spoken aloud. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, the journal was hovering. Not physically. Psychologically. Its pages spun without motion. Each one held an interaction she'd misread or misdelivered. You used silence to curate presence, said the figure. She was no longer startled. You feared distortion more than disconnection. She understood now. That every silence she built was not a wall. It was a lens. Not one that clarified but one that filtered. Images formed around her. People watching her speak, misinterpreting tone. Her pulling away after someone asked a too honest question. A friend who stopped calling but never stopped wondering. A word emerged on the wall. Intention. Followed by another, reception. Then a third, translation. They merged into a mural. Not visual. Conceptual. The mural showed her attempting connection with tools forged in avoidance. Her gestures designed to be misunderstood. Her expressions edited mid-emotion. The journal whispered. Every silence has an origin. Not every silence has a destination. She stepped closer. Pages fanned outward. Each led her deeper. Now a staircase. Each step labeled with a version of vulnerability she had rejected. Transparency without obligation. Listening without judgment. Speaking without certainty. She walked. And as she did, the space flooded. Not with water but with resonance. She was no longer silent. She was being heard retroactively. All the unspoken truths arrived. Late, but loud. She ascended the staircase built from vulnerability. Each step buzzed with a conversation that should have happened. Not regret, residue. At the top, a door. It didn't open. It asked, Are you ready to be understood? She hesitated. Not because she feared understanding, because she feared being misremembered. When the door let her through, it vanished behind her. Now she stood in a vast field. No buildings. No constructs. Just soil. But not of earth. Of awareness. Figures roamed. Not others. Versions. She approached one. It looked like her. But from the day she chose not to speak and let someone walk away. Another version sat cross-legged nearby. From the moment she wanted to say, "I need help," but laughed instead. They didn't accuse. They curated memory. The field began to bloom. Flowers formed from unfinished sentences. Petals shaped like, "I'm not okay." Stems grown from "Please stay." Roots nourished by silence used as armor. She knelt. Touched one. Spoke. In her voice. From a year she forgot. "I didn't know how to be clear." The figure, the original one, stood now beside her. No longer an enigma. Now a mirror. "You spent so long designing communication as avoidance," it said. She nodded. "What if language was never the issue?" it asked. "Only willingness." The journal floated above the field. Each page fluttered down like autumn leaves, each carrying a statement once thought but never uttered. She picked one. "I love you, but I don't know how to say it without changing everything," she cried. And the tears didn't fall. They translated. Into clarity. Into form. Into sound. The field vibrated. Not violently. Resonantly. She stood in the field of resonance. The journal hovered above her, now translucent. Its cover showing every word she hadn't spoken, not as failure but as blueprint. A new figure emerged. Not the previous one. Not a stranger. Her. But complete. Not idealized. Not corrected. Just unapologetically integrated. They approached each other. And the world didn't fracture. It harmonized. "What do you want to say?" the new version asked. She answered. "I don't need to speak everything. But I choose what stays silent." The wind shifted. The flowers bowed. In the distance, conversations resumed, ones that had paused years ago. The people weren't present, but their openness was. She felt it. Connection without contact. Then, the journal opened one final time. Inside it, no script. No narrative. Just one word. Now. She understood. Now wasn't the absence of before. It was the availability of meaning. The figure, the one who had walked beside her, faded. Not vanished. Released. She remained. She walked. The terrain adjusted. Less reactive, more receptive. Space acknowledged her. Silence stepped aside, making room for voice. She didn't raise her voice. She refined it. "They never asked for perfection," she whispered. "They asked for presence." Her feet touched ground not built by trauma, but by acceptance. The field ended. And began. She looked back. The journal closed. Not as artifact, but as companion. No longer writing for her. Writing with her.